Now, according to my excellent source, guess what? I told you recently how Harry wanted to offer a video thing to be played out at the Royal Albert Hall for the celebration of Sir David Attenborough. Didn't exactly work out because Prince William is the man in charge, and there was no way that that was going to happen when William was in charge, right? So consequently, this is again where you just have to think, let it drop. You picked your lane.
Nobody asked Archie. Nobody ever does. Here's what got buried this week, and you almost missed it. Harry and Meghan cooked up a plan to get their son Archie onto one of the biggest BBC broadcasts of the year. A plan that would have put him right there alongside a moment the whole world was already watching. And William shut it down. Completely. Quietly. No announcement, no drama, just gone. And the reason for that? Well, you'll see. Sir David Attenborough turned 100 years old. The celebration at the Royal Albert Hall was the kind of event that doesn't come around twice.
In nature, isn't it? I think that's why, dare I say, tenuously incoming, Prince George was enamoured with none other than Sir David Attenborough. Sir David Attenborough, who recently celebrated his 100th birthday with a spectacular event at the Royal Albert Hall alongside the...
William was there. He gave a speech. And everyone watching already knew the famous moment years ago when a young Prince George asked Attenborough a question about animals on camera. Innocent, genuine, real. That moment stuck with people because it felt unplanned.
Learn about animals, culture, the world. It was lovely. Of course, if you remember, and I mentioned this before, Prince George looked great when he asked that wonderful question as a young boy to Sir David about animals and boats and stuff like that. And you think, oh, adorable stuff. It really is, actually.
It felt like a child actually being a child.
I think it goes without saying, that Prince Harry is incredibly jealous of, the very, I would say, loving relationship with Prince George and his father, Prince William. And basically, this is because it's played out in many respects for us, which is lovely. I like seeing them together at the football. I think it's really heartwarming. And I like the fact that, I mentioned this before, I loved it when he ran into his mum's arms at the football because nothing else.
Now, here's where it gets interesting. Sources close to this story confirm that Meghan came up with the idea of having Archie do the same thing, ask Attenborough a question, on camera, at the BBC, mirroring George's most beloved public moment almost beat for beat.
Harry, and you have to stay in it, right? And so consequently, basically, what Markle had this idea, and again, I have to say, allegedly, is the idea of, well, why not, if we're going to do a video, have our own Archie, Prince Archie, put in a question to Sir David Attenborough, a la Prince George. I kid you not, right? And this is the thing about where you have to say...
Think about that. Not a coincidence. Not an accident at all. But before I get to what killed it, I need you to stay with me here for just a second, because I want to talk to you directly, not as a narrator, just person to person. There's a child in the middle of all this who has no say. Archie didn't choose the secrecy around his birth. He didn't choose to grow up hidden from the world on the other side of an ocean. He didn't choose to be the answer to a PR problem. And sitting with that for a moment genuinely bothers me. It should bother you too. Because whatever you think of Harry or Meghan, that boy is real. And real children deserve better than being positioned as props in someone else's image strategy. Okay, now let's get back into it. The BBC was actually in those conversations. This wasn't just daydreaming. It was moving forward until one question stopped everything cold.
This is the problem, right? So would the child, Archie, would he be fully faced? Would it be a voice? Would it be filmed from the back? And would it be typeset? It never got to the point, and this is the bit where I find really interesting, because then you could have said, couldn't you, if you were putting this together, which they were at the BBC, well, we'll be up for that. Yeah.
Would Archie appear on camera, full face, fully visible, like a normal child asking a normal question? Or would it be a silhouette, a voice from the back, something controlled and hidden? She said privacy. She said protection. Actually, let me rephrase that.
Yes, but we'd have to have the child full screen asking the question. Now, I don't know about you, this would have been a very nice and informal way to introduce the world to your son. Asking a question to somebody who's 100 years old, who knows all about this sort of stuff, and apparently Archie has an interest in the nature, as it were, bees and honey and all that sort of stuff. So it would.
The whole exit from royal life was sold to the world on the promise of protecting those children from exactly this kind of exposure. So why was this conversation happening at all? You already know why. You knew it before I said it. Because privacy was never the point. Control was always the point. Privacy when it cost them nothing. Visibility when it benefits them everything.
From the off, Markle was steaming by the fact that, nobody seemingly was going to give them the titles that they so desired, and then the security. She didn't want royal life, but she wanted everything that went with it for Harry's children, right? And you can see that this is a path that's just played out.
That's the pattern we've all been watching play out for years now, and nobody in mainstream media will say it plainly. William said no. The plan died. And the BBC walked away from what would have been a world exclusive because the terms around that child could never be agreed upon.
A world exclusive. The bottom line is, and I throw this open to all of our chums here on our show, would Markle allow her son to have asked a question like Prince George to Sir David Attenborough on camera for that? That's the big question, isn't it? And now, truly, sadly, we'll never know. As ever.
And that right there tells you everything. So I'm asking you directly, if the privacy of those children was ever truly the priority, why was any of this on the table? Who was that appearance really for? Drop your answer below, because I think you already know, and I think it's time more people said it out loud.